Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Amelia Kramer. I'm the owner here at Upwards Art Studio. So this is one of our bi-weekly demo sessions. So this week we'll be covering golden fluid acrylic. The next session will be April 13th because of Easter. There's kind of that, don't come in on Easter Saturday because of vigil. So it's going to be April 13th, I believe, and it's about pan pastels. So we do this every other week. We just started it in the new year. So all the videos are available on YouTube, basically an hour after I recorded, because that's basically how long it takes to upload here. Yeah, my internet's really slow. But they are all the back ones are available on the YouTube channel. So you can see some other ones as well. And any of these products are available in the store, or we can special order them. And then our inventory of the store is available on our website, which is upwardsartstudio.com. Okay, that's the. Okay. Spotlight this one. Okay. Okay, so I have some canvas paper here, just because it's a little bit heavier than like watercolor. Well, not heavier, but I could use watercolor paper as well. So this is the golden fluid acrylic. This one's their heavy body, and they come in different sizes. And then this is their high flow line. So I'm gonna just kind of put some out on this paper so that you can see the difference. Let's just move some of this stuff out of the way. Okay, so this is kind of what we all think of when we think of acrylic paint, is this one. Right, so if it's quite thick. And then this one is the fluid. They're all slightly different colors. Right, so that's very fluid. And then the high flow is almost like water. If I can get it out. Okay, should have tested these. It's never been opened. Never been opened. Right, like it's very liquidy. So all of them are compatible with one another. Right, so you could do like an underpainting in the heavy body and then put a glaze of the fluid on top, especially if it's a transparent color to begin with. And even the high flow, again, these are all going weird greens because they are greens. You could put that over top as well. You can intermix them as well. So if you want to have the heavy body have a little bit less viscosity. Less viscosity, you could just add a little bit of this, even in the same color, right? Because all the golden colors are the same across every line. So you could mix that instead of mixing something like the GAC 100 to thin it out a bit. This would keep the pigment really, like the saturation of the pigment really high, where it's just modifying the body of the paint a little bit, right? So you can kind of adjust that within the paint lines. Okay. Yeah, so all of the golden paints are compatible with across the lines. It's just the viscosity that is different, right? So those, and then it's also compatible with all the mediums that they make. And actually it's compatible with other companies' mediums, right? So later I'm gonna demo like a Liquitex medium. I'm actually gonna demo an encaustic medium, an encaustic gesso as well, but it would apply to like any color, like acrylic gesso or anything. Okay. So, and it's water soluble, of course, because it's acrylic paint, and all of the acrylic paint things like washes up with water and soap and all those things. Okay. So you can see the consistency, right? I talked about that a little bit. but, I don't want to lean too much into that. Right, that this one's quite heavy and retains the brush strokes or like my palette knife a lot. Whereas these ones are quite more watery. They can retain it a little bit, but it will be a flatter finish. So if you're looking for something with lots of texture to hold its texture, I would recommend this. But if you're looking for something that even on your top layer that you're trying to make it nice and smooth with no brush strokes, then the Fluid would be your best choice. So I'm just going to show you that part on something else. And I'm just going to put something right on my panel because I'm not really making a painting. Right, so if I wanted to, I could brush all those brush strokes out and they're completely gone. Even with a big brush like this. So I'm just, and it's not leaving too many, like I would have to go a lot to get the dry brush strokes, whereas the heavy body, you could almost get the dry brush strokes, you know, pretty quickly because of how much, because of one, how much I put on the canvas, and also the size of my brush, that it's quite big. Okay, and I'm not painting and painting. I do have to remind myself that I'm not actually painting something. So yeah, so and the consistency is nice because it's that slightly more liquid. And it does have that leveling property that it kind of like smooths itself out. If you wanted it to have slightly more body, then you would add like a GAC 100 or another polymer type, a medium that would add more body to it. But again, all the paint colors are the same across all of the lines, so you could do whatever you wanted. So the dry time with this is pretty fast. It's faster than the heavy body, especially in a thick application. So we'll see that shortly. We'll see here. I'm going to try to make it thinner over here so that it dries super fast. Okay. And you can do a lot of fine detail work with it. I don't have a whole lot of little tiny brushes because it's not something I don't paint really small. And with the golden line, there's lots of metallics. So this is like a copper one, and you can see that it's really, I'm going to move my camera back because it's really shimmery. This iridescent gold. Here, we'll use this one because it's beautiful. Right? Like it's gorgeous, right? And I can get really fine detail. No, you can't really, that's the tiniest brush in the world. Well, for me, it's the tiniest brush. Right, that you can get really fine detail. That's almost dry on there. So I could get, you know, to layer really quickly. It's nice because the fluid dries a lot faster than the heavy body. So there's not as much waiting around for paint to dry. And then if you have an opaque, I'm just trying to find, this is the black. Right, so if I have it on here, it's going to cover completely without being super like transparent or liquidy, right? So if I go to thin this with a polymer medium to make it more liquidy, then I'm going to lose some opacity, right? So this, you know, I could do like little fine. That's not really fine. That's not like Corey fine. Those are big Amelia things. Actually, that's a small Amelia thing. Right, I could get like a rigger out if I could find my rigger. But yeah, I could do a really thin line. And this is nice because it is a big solid, like not big, but it's a solid massive color that has that fine detail. So it's a lot easier to work in fine detail with this, obviously, than the heavy body.
If you had told me, I could have brought you some.
I have lots of them, but but my brush drawers are just packed full and lots of them are just big brushes because that's what I normally use. Yeah. So you can also layer with this, right? So let's find a transparent color-ish. Let's use this one. So this is the quinacridone magenta. I also like the quinacridone violet. So this is that's pretty dry now. So let's get my brush here. Actually, I want to get rid of most of that blue. It doesn't go too purpley. Right, so I can start layering colors. It's not making a new color, it's just putting that, my brush is really wet. Putting that color on top of the existing color. So it looks like it's mixed-ish, but it's more of a glazing thing than, right, because if I come over here, it's not doing that purple thing. Right? Does that make sense to everyone? So it's really easy to glaze with that. Again, you can add some glazing medium to it to make it even more glazy. But if you want like the glazing effect or a layering effect of colors, then it's a really easy way to do that without having to, you know, pull out all your mediums and then go through and figure out what, yeah. Right. So, so some other applications of this, you can obviously, because it's in a little bottle, you could like, you could just like drop it and it's going to hold that it's going to spread a little bit because it is liquid. And if I, you know, could go bananas and, you know, just do that. That didn't come out as a line. I anticipated that coming out as like a nice line. Yeah, so and even like this, we have the gold, so let's layer the gold. And this brush is holding a lot of water. Right, if I just want some shimmer over top of the right, it's just that kind of like little highlight in that area. Obviously, this is a big brush, but so other applications, you could use it with an airbrush. This can go straight into an airbrush machine and you can use it. Can also use it on fabric. I wasn't sure what everybody's medium usually is. Anybody paint on fabric?
Playing around with,
okay.
With all kinds of things. We were doing that for blowing the, what's it called? I don't know what it's called when you use a hairdryer or a straw and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. We just started playing around with this fluid paint.
Yeah, so lots of people, not lots of people, but there's often people who come into the store looking for fabric type art, right? That they are quilters or they are, you know, and they're expanding from that. So the fluid acrylic is really great on fabric because of its, we're just going to go with the black, because of its ability to go right into the fabric. You could obviously like put a medium down first so that it doesn't absorb right in. But you could just leave it like that. Once it dries, it becomes permanent. You could add a fabric medium like the GAC 900 to like mix with it or to put over top when it's done. So the heavy body, it's harder. I find that the heavy body is harder to get into the fabric itself. And it doesn't, it's kind of sits on top of, whereas this is really incorporated into the fabric rather than sitting on top of the fabric. So it soaks kind of through, but not a crazy amount. And this is canvas. So obviously if you're doing like linen or cotton, it's going to soak through more. So if you're doing a t-shirt or something, you would put like parchment paper in between or wax paper or something. Yeah, like jean jacket, like denim, you wouldn't need that. Canvas, you wouldn't need that. Any of the thicker fabrics, obviously you don't need that. But that's really a nice thing about this is that it like absorbs into the fabric rather than sitting on top of. So you could, and you can also layer this as well on the fabric. So once that dries, then you could layer on top of it. And then it's also compatible with other mediums. I'm not sure where to put that. And I just stuck my finger in my wet paint. So this is the satin glazing medium. Yep. No, I know there's a notification. It wants me to become the host and I'm like, nope, I would rather the other. Oh, and this probably isn't open. Not sure why this is back here if it's not open. Right, so this will, this is a glazing medium. So it will make the paint a little bit less opaque. Let's get this, let's just use a different brush. Okay, so I'm just gonna mix a little bit here. Actually, I'm gonna mix the whole thing. And when you're mixing paint, it's a better idea to use a palette knife than your brush. Because now I have a lot of paint on my brush that I may not be able to completely get off. Yeah. Right, and so if I want like a little bit, like I've got to, yeah, now I've got to wipe it off on my brush instead of my palette knife just being nice and clean and then picking it up with the brush. Right, so this is a lot more fluid than this was, and I'm not having that excess like weird brush, not weird, but like dry brushing strokes. So there's a good example of the like the translucency that happens with the layering. And I have a lot of magenta on the brush. Okay, let's go that side. And then you can also mix it with other mediums. So I'm going to show, let's do that one last. Oh, I know, look, and there was something hidden under here that I forgot about. So this is just a wooden cradle panel with some drywall spackling on it to make some texture. In this case, I did show somebody how to burn it with the torch, which is something that we do with encaustic. Like we have to heat the encaustic paint. So, and this is a way to get texture on the bottom, but you could use something like drywall spackle, or you could use like a the molding paste, right, which you can mix with this. But like this can just give a nice kind of a nice finish to this. And I can grab all this works. Some paper towel. I might need a baby wipe actually. So baby wipes, if you're not familiar with them as an artist, get familiar with them because they clean up your hands, they clean up your workstation, they clean up paint, right? So I can take that back so that it's just in the ridges, right? That the ridges are darker.
Another use for baby. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah,
many.
so they're great at like erasing paint if you can get to it right away. So now I've got some like really interesting
Yeah.
texture that I've picked up with the paint by putting it down and then kind of erasing some of it. Right, and I could layer that again, that I could try to just hit the tops. Oh, now my brushes are really dirty. Just keep going back for different ones. Right, that I could just kind of make this part gold on top. Kind of ish. So that it kind of, it's not a huge amount of contrast, a little bit, but not a huge amount. So on something like this, it's going to take a bit more to dry because the paint absorbs into the drywall compound. So that's just something to think about. That I'm not sure you can see on the video very well, but yeah, so that's something that you can do with the fluid, easier than the heavy body, absolutely easier than the heavy body. And so if you're gonna put something like molding paste or drywall spackle or like the fiber paste, any of those type of mediums, they can go on canvas. But the canvas can have a tendency to like make it heavier and then pull, like make the canvas loose. So I always do those things on a cradled panel, because I know that they're not going to be, like this isn't gonna flex. Like if this has a whole bunch of weight on it, then it can start to pull itself down because they're not always super tight, right? So, and when you're putting that stuff on, this is wanting to flex as you're like using your spatula or whatever, whereas the board it's hard, right? You get, right? You get these,
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah.
That it's hard to apply on that edge, right? Trying to get stuff like a spackle medium or spackling or whatever you're using for texture. It's hard to get that into these little, like near the edge of canvases. So yeah,
These are little wood.
these are little wood, they're called birch cradled panels, is like, yeah. So they are 3/8 inch birch plywood that is attached to 1x2s. And then you would put your hanging mechanism here, and then it just it hangs on the wall. So you don't need extra frame, like lots of people don't frame these. They're just kind of finished, right? So they do come in other widths. I always use the 1.5 because you don't need to frame it like at all. This one's just like a dollar store one because we use these for the kids. But that's the 1/2 inch. And the dollar store ones, you can see that they're not, like it's a different wood for one. There's not that 3/8 inch ply. It's just one ply. And this is a lot, like it's made of basil wood instead of birch wood. So it's a lot softer and can, do all those gross things that basswood does, where it flexes and does all of that kind of gross stuff. So like these can go in a bathroom, right? Whereas this would like fall apart in a bathroom.
Right.
Yeah. Does that make sense? That
Yeah.
makes sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I was going to demo this. So this is encaustic gesso, but the same principle could apply to acrylic gesso. It could apply to any types of mediums that are thicker. So usually I have a little stir stick around. This kind of the gesso sometimes kind of separates itself. So rather than shaking things and getting things all bubbly, gesso especially should be stirred instead of shaken, which is right, James Bond.
Yeah.
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 Opposite of James Bond.
Oh, darn.
So I'm showing this because my friend Ruth Maud, who runs the All Things Encaustic blog and Facebook group, she talked about this the other day because she was looking for an alternative way to color her encaustic gesso. She had been using the Cama aqua dispersion dyes. Is everybody okay? Do you need a drink of water? Okay. Actually, I'm just gonna pour a little bit more in here. So usually when I'm making gesso, like coloring gesso, I put it into a little like mason jar so that I can I can put the lid back on and then use it later as well. And okay. And these ones, you really have to clean the top, otherwise they seal themselves. Actually, you should clean the top of all of your jars. These ones are brutal though. That's not going on straight. We'll fix that later. I hope I remember to fix that later. So with gesso and other things that are white to begin with that don't dry clear, it's going to, right, like this is never going to be that bright magenta color. It's going to be like there's white in it. So usually with encaustic, you can't use acrylic things, but coloring a gesso, you can. So you just have to stir it. You could, you know, adjust the colors with different colors. You don't have to use something straight up. Again, I'm sounding like I'm a bartender. So I can use this as my base, right? If I wanted, like, if you normally start with like an orange base in the background of a painting, which lots of people do to create that vibrancy, you could just add a little bit of like an orangey to a gesso, and then it's has that tooth already. So let's put this on a little wooden block, because that's what I would use for encaustic. And I need some more paint. I'm just gonna blot on the towel roll. Right, and then you would just apply it. And you could, you know, have a blue next to it, so it's not all one color. Right, so there's lots of options for this. And all of these paints will, like, they'll even pigment something like chalk paint that already has a pigment in it, but that you could change the color slightly. I'm just saying that because encaustic artists use chalk paint as a base sometimes. So, right, so now I have a pink background instead of the wood background, and yeah, you know how gesso works. Okay. Okay, so the last thing, now I have a lot of that. We'll just deal with that later. So the other one that lots of people use is a pouring medium. And I think I just used the board that I was going to use that for. So we'll do it on this one. So pouring mediums, again, it's something that I normally do on a wood block, because lots of my canvases have, like, I've been sitting around for a while, and they have really, the canvas isn't as tight as it was. And really that happens over time with canvases. And this weighs a lot. Like this is the Liquitex pouring medium. Okay. So alternatives to it are things like Floetrol. This does not go bad. That's the problem with the Floetrol, is that you open it, give it 3 weeks, and like you've used a bit, 3 weeks later, it's garbage, right? You can't use it again, and it like chunks up and is gross. So this stays perfect all the time. So you can use little bits at a time. You don't have to use the whole jar. It does come in different sizes. If you're going to run a kids class for it, I would say that you don't do it. That was one of the worst experiences of my life. I love my little after school kids, but that was, I had to get my teacher voice out. It was brutal. And so yes, you can use the heavy body paint with this, but the fluid, you won't get those chunks that you could end up having with, let's not use a color that I've used already. Let's go. Oh, this is a lovely color. This is my favorite color. This phthalo, turquoise phthalo. Yeah. So it's gonna look a little white when I mix it. So I've got, like 3 or 4 drops of the paint in there, and I'm gonna add some of this is Triart. This is like a silicone to make all the cells in a pouring painting. So you just need like 1 drop of that. And then you slowly mix, trying not to make bubbles.
So sorry, the acrylic does what for the pouring paint?
So the acrylic colors the pouring medium. Yeah. The silicone makes cells. So yeah, I'm just gonna grab this one over here. Right, so all of these little blots, circles and bubbly type things, those are the cells, and it's from the silicone, that silicone stuff. And actually I should have added it after I stirred the color in.
So you stir it in.
So you put this in a little cup or some whatever, put some of this in, mix it, add like 1 drop of this, give it a little mix, like just kind of that last stir on a soup.
Okay.
Right? And then you can pour it. Right? So I can, pour it like this. It's going to hold that shape, although this room is very not level. and this canvas is really not level. So, like the canvas has a flex in the middle, right? So if I made another color, which I can, let's just do that. So I have the pouring medium, kind of like a half ounce, 1 ounce shot, depending on how big your canvas is. Some paint in. Use a different stir stick because that one has blue all over it. Mix that up. So with the heavy body, if I tried to mix it, I'd really have to make sure that all the lumps and bumps were out. Whereas this fluid, you just kind of, it's easy. There's not that extra thinking. And
What's the difference between, these are fluid?
yeah,
paints,
these are
right?
fluid.
What's the difference between the ones that say they're pour paints?
Pour paints,
Well,
they are already mixed.
So you don't need that.
So you don't, yeah, for the pour paints, if they're branded as pouring paints, they already have this in it. It might not have
Might
this
not
in it.
have that in, okay.
Yeah. And just like 1, maybe 2 drops. And then just kind of like that light stir. And then something that's interesting with pouring medium is that the paints don't mix together to make like, really, that should be all like green, right? Where that blue is, yeah, where the blue and the yellow mix, like it should be like a green, right? And it's not doing that. And so you just keep pouring different colors. So I could, like, I still have some of this left, so I could pour the blue inside of that. So there's lots of different pouring techniques that you can do, like, and then you can blow it around with a hairdryer or straw or something like that. If you're going to, so the only way that it will mix is if you start trying to like manipulate it with something, then it might, right? If I start to stir this, then it's gonna go whatever green it should go when they're mixed together. Does that make sense?
So does that start bubbling then because of this?
So it starts doing that over time.
Right.
So this takes at least a day to dry enough to touch it. It's not going to be cured. It's only dry enough to touch it. So I would leave it even for 3 days before you try to, like, sign it or do all of that stuff. And on whatever.
So it's going to change.
So it's going to change as it dries. So if it looks like this, it's not going to look like this tomorrow or even in an hour.
Right.
Because it's going to slowly, and you can, kind of manipulate it on the board.
But if you use a blow dryer, let's say, then it would start showing those bubbles quicker, would it not?
A hair dryer, I would use it to manipulate it rather than try to dry it faster.
No, yeah, but that's where though this would come out a bit.
Yeah, and it's coming out more on that because I have a white, right? I've used a titanium white. Yeah.
Because we were seeing the bubbles as soon as we were blowing it, you could see not bubbles, but like that cells.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's what this wherever I yeah. Yeah, so that's what this, yeah, so it's called Liquid Glass by Triart, and Triart is a Canadian company. They make paint in Kingston, Ontario. So yeah. Anything else I was gonna do with that? I'm not sure. I'm asking myself out loud. Yeah, so this would take, quite some time to dry. Whereas this is still kind of tacky wet, even. This is dry. This is completely dry. Right. So yeah. So the nice thing about getting paints for a pouring medium is that you can control the colors really well. Right. And you can adjust them, make slight adjustments and yeah. Because I find that the pouring paint lines are limited in what colors they have. So
Yeah.
this, you can make any
You
color.
can make any color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you could do this on the base and
Yeah.
then once that's dry, you can do.
yeah,
something
so,
else.
so this is gonna be pretty opaque-ish. I can see that it's going a little translucent here. Yeah, so if it's a transparent color, it's gonna go transparent. So like on this small one, it was just a white canvas to begin with,
Right.
right? So it's, you know, showing a little bit of white of the canvas here, but yeah, if you toned the back with something, then you could make whatever the background color is, make those new colors pop, right? If you use something that's like an orange and then put yellow on top of it, it would make it super bright. Or even the other way around, actually. Any other questions about fluid paints or how you would use them, or?
So do you put like we've been putting like a white base
Mhm.
of pouring paint and then putting off lines or whatever with the others and then blowing that.
Yeah.
You always need that, like here you had just sort of the fluid paint underneath, right? So do you have to use like a whole
Put a whole like coat of that.
of
fluid stuff
pouring
first.
paint?
No, your canvas is gessoed anyway,
Okay.
right? So that already has three coats of something, of gesso actually, that
Right.
protects the canvas. If you have just a straight up, like one of these blocks that are not gessoed, I would put a layer of gesso, if not two
Right.
layers. It dries pretty quickly. Like this is almost dry that I could sand it. So you do have to kind of sand in between layers, but it's not that hard to do.
Right.
I guess because we were doing the white fluid,
Yeah.
the whole canvas, because we thought that made it more fluid or more.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
to
I
do
would
more
just use
things.
colors unless you wanted white.
So you don't have to-
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
Save
that's
paint
the
that
bit
way.
that uses a lot of paint.
Yeah, yeah, I
You've
would
got
only
something
use,
like this big.
yeah, I would
and you're
only
pouring
use,
your pouring paint on it. It's like, oh my God, the whole bottom's going out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You use a lot of paint.
yeah, so
and
I,
waste a lot.
yeah, I would just, if you want something to be white, use the white pouring paint, but if you want, like, if you don't want any white in the finished piece, then don't use it.
And don't need to.
Yeah. And this would be compatible with all of your pouring paints that you already have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's an option to get like just a little bit of these things, and then you could mix
Right.
these up, and then you could use them intermingled
You could put
with your
both
existing
together.
colors. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, and this is, you can see that this is moving because the canvas is pretty flexed, right? So it's gonna kind of pool somewhere. So I
Right.
could, put something underneath it. I always reach over here and there's never the thing that I want. Right, I could put something like this underneath it, which is basic, well, it's a little higher, but. Right, I could just, and it's not fitting in.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a little wet. That's okay, it's gonna be like that for. Right, and that one's slightly too
Now it's
tall,
going out.
Yeah, that's gonna be kind of cool.
yeah. Right, so you can use all of those things.
Mhm.
Right, so again, it is something that like when I do paint pouring, unless it's super small, right? Because the smaller the canvas, the tighter it is. But once you start getting bigger, I would just move to wood because you're not gonna get that bowing thing that happens, like that is happening right now. Okay,
Yeah. Interesting.
any other questions?
Do you have to seal them?
No.
No, you don't need to put anything on them.
No, you don't technically need to seal acrylic paint. You can varnish it. Some of the colors are not light fast because of their pigment. It will say that on the bottle though. I'm trying to figure out where it says on this bottle. It does say on the bottle and I can't find where it says it on that bottle. But they give a light fast, yeah, they give a light fast rating, and that, so if you have paints that are not light fast, then I would put a varnish over top of it, like a UV coat varnish. Yeah, yeah.
And not that.
Yeah.
The varnish. Okay.
Yeah. And the varnish you can get in matte, satin, or just like regular house paint, matte, satin, or gloss. Actually, there's a super high gloss as well. So depending on, and it creates a uniform look through your whole painting. So if that's something that you want, then you could use a varnish.
Okay.
And again, that would be a personal choice of whether you want to have the contrast. Like art is a lot about contrast, right? That's what our eye sees. Our eyes see contrast in value. They see contrast in texture. They see contrast in color. They see contrast in finishes. So when you have two different finishes, then your eye looks at that and is trying to figure that out, right? Which makes somebody step closer to your painting and then start to have a personal connection with it because they're trying to figure it out.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. So anyway, okay. All good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So yeah, let me just switch cameras here. I can switch. I need my glasses today. Oh, and look, I got some weird hair going. Okay. You know what? You're just gonna go this way. Well, maybe not. Yeah, so the next one is April 3rd. I believe it's the 13th. It's a Saturday in April, and it's for pan pastels, which is they're a soft pastel that's like makeup, basically. They're kind of like eyeshadow. So you put them on with a brush, and if you're great at eyeshadow, they're perfect for you. Even if you want to, I know, I'm like, I'm kind of okay with eyeshadow, but I'm good with, like, I'm pretty good with them. And you can layer them and blend them together. Yeah. And they can sit on top of basically anything to tone something. So they're a good alternative that if you've finished an acrylic painting, you know, and you're like, oh, maybe I just need a little bit of this here. Instead of pulling out your paints, you could just pull out pan pastels. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So
Great.
thanks, everyone. Let's stop the recording.